All right, Free Radicals, welcome back. My name is Dave, and this is The Radical Independent. If you were watching earlier, you probably noticed there was a video that was loaded onto YouTube, and then it was taken down. I decided to do that since the video got demonetized after it wasn't immediately, which to me indicates that there might not be an algorithm at work, because the video had a couple of hundred views on it, and then suddenly it went yellow, which means it got demonetized. Rather than, again, do the ruling and having all of the arbitration over the weekend, and then by the time everyone has finished watching it, it gets monetized, which means I basically don't earn any revenue on it, I decided to delete it and then upload it to Rockfin. Rockfin is $9.99 a month. It would be worth it to get over there if you're not into my commentary. You've got a lot of familiar voices that you see on YouTube, but doing long-form presentations and also being a little bit more explicit, I would say. Not worrying about censorship as much over there, and you can kind of say what you want, and people don't care. In fact, they seem to embrace the idea of freedom of speech. All right, if you're not into free speech, if you're into neoliberalism and so forth, then Rockfin is not for you. I want to briefly do a video about why Tulsi Gabbard is still running for president. I have been asked that question by a few folks, and I think I have a good answer for you. I think it's a twofold explanation. Number one, Tulsi Gabbard isn't a quitter. She's a fighter. All right, and she's going to fight on. She has a message. I think she believes, and I think she believes correctly, that her message is very unique and nobody else is bringing her message. The anti-war portion of her message, especially in light of the video that I just uploaded to Rockfin about Bernie Sanders and his pandering, I guess you'd call it, over to the neoliberal establishment when it comes to the war machine and the military-industrial complex, that makes it very difficult for someone who is very pro-peace to vote for anybody in this race other than Tulsi Gabbard. At this point, if the Democratic Party does not want a nominee, which is clear, they don't want Tulsi Gabbard, they don't want a nominee who advocates for peace and who even just wants to do less interventions around the world, and that would be more or less Donald Trump's position. When Bernie is sounding to the right of Trump on a number of different things, then you really have to rethink your support. Now, if you're just into domestic policy, then I get where you're coming from. But again, you've got to understand that everything else sort of rolls downhill from foreign policy as far as domestic policy is concerned. There are plenty of people who have blogged about this, who have talked about this, and obviously this is Tulsi Gabbard's position. And that is why she is far more credible on domestic policy, because of what she believes on foreign policy. Now, the other reason, and I think this is a big reason, because Tulsi, does she want to try to make an impact? Does she want to get to the convention and earn some delegates and get to the convention? That would be a pretty sweet thing if that occurred. I'm not sure it will. I don't see any states out there. Maybe California might be a state where she can capture some delegates. But I think one of the main reasons she is staying in is because we've all given to her campaign. And we've given, a fairly generous amount of money to keep her going. And there's no way she's going to be a bad steward of what we've given her. So naturally, I think she'd rather spend that money and get rid of it and campaign and go to different states and let that money eventually run out, rather than give that money over to the DNC, because I believe that's where the money ends up. I mean, I was told that candidates who bow out, unless they have a campaign to run, say like a senator decides to go back and run for Senate, and they can use those campaign funds, which I think is still a little disingenuous, but they take that money and they'll use it to run for Senate or to run for whatever position they want to run for. Tulsi Gabbard, we know she's not going to do that because she has decided not to run for Congress again. A lot of times candidates like Tulsi will change their mind after they see the writing on the wall, and they'll go back to running and trying to win their district and so forth. Tulsi's not doing that. So her primary motivation for staying in this thing, I believe, is the fact that she wants to make sure the DNC doesn't get our contributions. And the other rationale is there's still a very odd and strange possibility, because anything can happen in politics, that there are things, for instance, about Bernie Sanders that may come out. Now, I don't have anything specific, but my guess is that there's op research. They are digging. They are looking for quotes. They are looking for Bernie back when he was, just out of college and so forth. We know that there is a thesis or a paper that Bernie wrote a long time ago that has caught the attention of many on the right as being a little bit askew from the conventional wisdom of even that time. And so we shall see if that sees the light of day, and if there's anything else. My guess is there's going to be stuff. And you can't be naive to that. And by the way, you're not going to be blindsided by that, because you knew the establishment would do everything they could to stop Bernie Sanders. Now, the weird thing is that Bernie ends up being fairly similar and is willing to coalesce, I would say, on foreign policy, whereas Tulsi is not. That's why she was deemed, the Russian asset and the foreign agent and all these different things, Assad sympathizer, you name it. Any sort of smear they could throw out there against Tulsi Gabbard, they did, and it was very effective. But say Bernie was to tumble, Bernie was to run into a brick wall, the media decided that they were going to go full speed ahead. Well, who is still lurking in the shadows a bit? Tulsi Gabbard, who could appeal to Bernie Sanders supporters and say, look, I'm the real anti-war candidate here. Hate to give Bernie a hard time about this because I love Bernie, but hey, I'm the real anti-war candidate, and my agenda is much more, I guess, palatable to people really from both sides of the political spectrum, and that's what differentiates Tulsi from Bernie to a large extent. Although there are some people now on the right who have warmed up to Bernie, but for the wrong reasons probably, but they are warming up because Bernie, again, is running against an establishment that apparently is afraid of someone who is going to probably bend and do whatever they ask him to do. Just the mere thought that people might have health care, or that we might scale back our efforts as far as global war all the time in so many different countries, the fact that we would actually, say that out loud is enough to make the establishment very nervous. But quite honestly, I don't think Bernie Sanders means it. That's the conclusion I've come to. I just don't think he means it. Is he still a better candidate than the rest of the Democratic field? Yes, he's a better candidate than Michael Bloomberg or Joe Biden or, God forbid, Pete Buttigieg. All right, he's a better candidate than those people, just based on the things that he said and based on the type of public service he's done. But with that said, the fact that he didn't fight that hard in 2016 and then endorsed Hillary Clinton, it still leaves the door open for someone like Tulsi Gabbard to maybe come in very late in the game and start to surge a little bit, enough to get her recognized and maybe get her a seat at the table at the Democratic National Convention. Is it plausible? Yes. Is it likely? No. But you can be feeling good about the money that you sent Tulsi Gabbard, because my thesis here is she's not going to waste the money. So there you have it, folks. Couple of reasons as to why Tulsi is not dropping out. and I'm glad she's still in this, because her town halls are informative. Her little, the spots that she runs, political ads she's been running, those things have been great. And she offers a truly independent perspective and does not march to anyone's drums. Tulsi Gabard is her own person, and thank goodness she's still out there. So there you have it. I know some people think I'm discouraged or down and out about this, or kind of talking Tulsi down. I just tell it like it is. The other day when I did the autopsy video, I know a lot of people did not like that video. But there's, there are political realities, and I'm definitely aware of those. And I think everybody needs to be aware of those realities. And most of them have to do with our system. And one last thought, and I know a lot of people don't like me talking about this either, but if there's nowhere else for us to go, Tulsi isn't a viable candidate, and she can't break through with the neoliberal establishment. And Bernie is trying to placate the establishment, say, hey, I'm one of you. I'm not so bad. I'm one of you. Really. Watch what I do on foreign policy, If that's actually happening, then you really need to start to think green, okay? And I'm talking Green Party. If you're a libertarian type, then maybe you think of Libertarian Party. But if you're for all of the actual domestic policies, and the big one for me, which is against war, okay? And that is my top agenda item. And I know the Green Party, they're not going to debate that issue. That is in their platform. It's part of who they are. And I would be more willing to hold my nose on some character flaws of candidates or personality conflicts and so forth, and just vote principle. I mean, we have to start a movement, and you would think the year where Bernie breaks through, that's not the year to move even further left. But guess what? It might be if Bernie's not serious about these things, and everything is so systemic that there's no way for anybody to break through unless they come from a different perspective, and they're not beholden to anybody within their party to do the things that they really don't want to do. So that's my perspective on it. I'm hoping this video will stay monetized on YouTube. You can support my work on PayPal, davidjspuria@gmx.com. That's for one-time PayPal donations. There's also a link on this banner page on my YouTube page, which takes you to Patreon, which Patreon is actually shared with my music-based channel. You subscribe over there, you still help me. We can even have little conversations back and forth about things that you're concerned about, and I'll try to answer those questions if you have them. Again, I'm just an average guy trying to do something that might help my country and my fellow citizens. That's yet to be determined if it's actually doing any good, but we keep trying. We just keep running against that mountain of adversity that is in front of us. We just keep plowing forward. That's the way Tulsi Gabard does it, and I take my cues more from Tulsi than anyone else. So with that said, I am done. Thanks for watching, and check out my video on Rockfin about Bernie. It's a mind-blowing video, and I've heard people post this article that I read from, but I haven't seen any real long-form presentations of what I did. So that's very interesting and very telling that the progressives around you might actually be neo-progressives. Just saying. All right, see you soon.